So I'm calling this meeting of the Sherborn Conservation Commission to order, November 18th, 2021, virtual meeting. All right. So I know that we have one thing that we're going to add under, yeah, Michael?
As we learned, we're supposed to make a motion to open.
Yeah, but how can you make a motion when you don't have a meeting that's convened yet?
I thought you just opened it.
Well, how can I open it if I can't open it without a motion?
No, it doesn't make any sense to me either, but the lawyers told us to do it. So
I move to open the meeting. It's 7:17.
I will second that motion.
Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor, Jean?
Aye.
Neil, aye. Michael?
Aye.
Courtney?
Aye.
Cindy?
Aye.
Fabulous.
Carol's not here.
What's that?
Carol is not here.
Not yet.
Did you ask Jessica here? Oh, no.
She
No.
can't make it.
No.
Okay, so under the 48-hour rule, we are going to add the Anna, what is it called again? I'm sorry. Colonial.
The Constitution Village violation.
Okay, so we're going to add that because that's something we became aware of yesterday. Basically, there's some sedimentation happening in Dopping Brook that was observed, and so we'll take that up today. Anything else that needs to be added under the rule that you couldn't have anticipated it more than 48 hours in advance?
Nope.
Okay, I move that we add that item to the agenda.
Second.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor, Jean?
Aye.
Neil, aye. Michael?
Aye.
Courtney?
Aye.
Cindy?
Aye.
Thank you. Oh, here comes Carol. All right. So, okay. Let's see. Jean, did you have something you wanted to contribute on the poetry front?
Yes, I do.
Fantastic.
And
I could redo last week if you want, or for last month. Sorry.
no thanks.
Fine, be that way.
Yeah, so in keeping with my usual tendency, I'm not reading a poem. I'm going to read a couple of snippets from the prologue of Doug Tallamy's newest book, which is called The Nature of Oaks. And I thought this would be appropriate given the fact that we talked about canopy trees at the last meeting. On July 15th, 2000, Cindy and I moved into our newly constructed house in southeastern Pennsylvania. Our property is 10 acres and it had been mowed for hay for decades before we bought it. Its only trees were 3 hickories in the upper corner of the property and a few black cherries. I was eager to plant more trees, so that fall I collected some white oak acorns and planted one in a small flower pot. It is now 18 years later, and that tiny seedling is nearly 45 feet tall with a trunk circumference of 47 inches at breast height and a canopy spread of 30 feet. Despite this impressive growth rate, my oak is still a baby. Oaks in general are long-lived trees, and members of the white oak group can easily live many hundreds of years if their roots are given free rein and not impeded by sewer lines, road cuts, basements, parking lots, or some other such human constraint. During that impressive lifespan, a single tree will drop up to 3 million acorns and serve as a lifeline for countless creatures. Unfortunately, the diverse web of life that is associated with oaks goes unnoticed and thus unappreciated by most homeowners and even many trained biologists. In fact, too many homeowners cut down the oaks on their properties because they've grown tired of raking leaves. The cause of this indifference is lack of knowledge. How can we be interested in or understand the ecological significance of something we know nothing about? I want to just put that on a t-shirt. Today, our ignorance of natural history is a cultural norm. Our attention has been usurped by the digital age, and any spare moments we have each day are consumed by our personal devices or flat screen TVs. Our school curriculum does not fill this knowledge void, and most assignments have a digital component that teaches us little about the life around us. I meet intelligent adults today, people who have excelled at all levels of their education and are successful members of our society, who cannot even recognize an oak leaf, let alone tell me anything about the food webs linked to oaks or the many ways oaks provide life support we call ecosystem services. Even worse, they fail to see the importance of such minimal knowledge of natural history. And this is why I've decided to write this book. My point is simply this: there is much going on in your yard that would not be going on if you didn't have one or more oak trees gracing your piece of planet. And I'll stop there.
Oof. A
It's kind of
cliffhanger.
preachy, but I love it.
That's great.
That was lovely.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you. All right, so agenda-wise, we've got at 7:15, the NOI for 211 Farm Road. Are we continuing that again?
Yes.
Okay,
Elizabeth, did Joyce tell you which date she wanted to continue it to?
Elizabeth?
Elizabeth, are you muted?
She's not muted, but maybe something else is going on.
Well, I know she wanted to continue it. I just don't know which day.
Okay, hold on. I mean, we could continue it to the next meeting and then until we get some audio back from Elizabeth, and then, you know, if we need to move it, we can. Or we need to continue it to something in the future after that.
I guess we should do that then. I'll text Elizabeth.
Okay. Well, when's our next meeting?
December 2nd.
December 2nd. Okay. Let's just put it on the agenda for now. All right. So I move that we continue the.
Oh,
NOI.
hang on.
Yes.
Yes, I got a text from Elizabeth. She's having trouble with her computer, but Joyce wanted to continue it to December 2nd at 7:30.
Okay. I'll take that as a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, Jean?
Aye.
Neil, I. Michael?
Aye.
Carol?
Hi.
Cindy?
Aye.
Courtney?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, the motion carries. We've still got 6 minutes to go before we get into our 7:30 budget discussion. So why don't we fill it with stuff? Do we have minutes?
Sure. I can pull it
Can
up.
we get it done in 6 minutes, do you think?
Sure.
Minutes in 6 minutes?
We'll find out. This one is, I guess it already has somehow edits got accepted from me, and I think this is the one. Oh, yeah, this is the one that Cindy and I have read. So people can just tell me when to scroll.
I'm good to go.
Carol, Courtney,
Yeah.
I wasn't at this meeting, so I just skimmed it and I didn't see any problems.
think McDowell has an A in it. Yeah, I don't know if that's the only occurrence, but I just see it at the moment.
It's, oh, MAC, is it really? Oh,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's McDowell. That's right.
Yeah, that's right.
okay.
I have a question about where it says the applicant would like to mow and brush hog the hill rather than chemically treat the area, which is supported by the commission. I don't know whether we should use that wording since we didn't take a vote. I think there was discussion about it, but I'm not sure it was.
We all supported, we basically gave them the message to go ahead with that. We did support it, as everybody sort of agreed. It wasn't something you would take a vote on. It's basically what we said we would like to see in the O&M plan.
It's just unusual for us to say that.
Yeah, it is, unusual, but they wanted guidance as to which way to go.
Well, maybe what you could do is say, you know, we were in agreement that it should be included, something that's more specific to that. Because, right, supported just, it could be construed as, you know, we sort of formally stated it rather than decided that we wanted to include that as a
Which the commission agreed with.
Spoke in favor of?
I like
think-
that.
Okay, whatever.
Well, we actually were more than spoke in favor of, because we gave them the go-ahead to go that way. That's why I want something, I think, more truthful to the meeting is that we just agreed with that. I guess with, I don't like dangling prepositions, but I guess I could put with which. If anybody really gets.
Carol, are you okay with which the commission agreed?
Or if, with, either way.
Well,
You could just say, if you don't like the grammar, you could say which the commission agreed to. That's it. Well, that's probably not better, but maybe.
All right, I'm fine with the way it is now. I'm not worried about dangling preposition in our minutes.
which the commission agreed with, that's fine.
Yeah.
As long as that's the sort of tenor you want to strike, Carol.
I guess so. I don't remember that level of agreement, but Michael, if you.
Yeah, no, I remembered is that we gave them explicit instructions to go that way because we all agreed that that it didn't seem that herbicide would be that much more beneficial. And we've always had issues about advocating for herbicides.
I guess I'm looking, I think these are my notes where I said, I wrote down that the meadow should be mown annually in April or November, and that herbicides limited to the extent possible. Yeah, I don't see anything that I wrote specifically about this, so I can't really provide additional guidance.
Well, so when we agreed to that they would take that tack, are we talking about, we just told them that that's what we would like to see in the O&M plan?
I think that's what we said. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because I agree, to me, the point Carol's making, which I understand and agree with, is that it sounds like we're sort of agreeing with or supporting our things that the commission formally or can formally do through a vote or something like that. So if we just say which the commission agreed should be included in the O&M plan, that I think would be okay. I think that's where the ambiguity gets cleared up. What do you think of that, Carol?
That makes me feel better. Yeah, I'm noticing I just made notes that we talked about invasive management with herbicide on the tips, but they were saying it was very expensive.
Right.
It's impossible. So they would recommend brush hogging and mowing the wetland portion one time a year and brush hogging the hill and chainsawing. I also wrote no herbicides, use natives. Yeah, I guess Matt had asked, what about for the edge with the big buckthorn? Could we hit the big ones with herbicide? But I don't think that we agreed to that.
So at the risk of pushing the agenda, we're now 7:31. Can we just table this and we'll come back to it? When
what was the wording that you came up with? At least.
Which the commission agreed should be part of the O&M plan. Okay. All right, so let's jump to the budget. Jean, do you want to lead the way here, and I can kind of jump in as needed?
Yeah, is Kelly here?
No, it's okay. I mean, I think we.
Yeah,
have-
Kelly wanted to be here. He's making a presentation at the selectmen's meeting this evening. So I hope everybody had a chance to read the email I sent last week. I think the decisions before us are pretty few, and I hope that my email made sense. I think this discussion should go pretty easily. You know, based on circumstances, I don't think we're going to be in a position to contemplate or increase the land or ask for an increase to the land management budget in fiscal year 23 because we didn't get our recommendations from the inventory team until very recently, and there's no time to talk about it. And secondly, we already have another ask, which is to increase the agent salary for up to 35 hours a week. So besides that ask, the way I see it, everything else is just going to be level funded. And what else needs to be decided is what to consider as the use for the special projects fund, which is $6,440. So does anybody have any questions from what I sent?
I guess how much is the ask?
I only did a rough calculation, but it's an increase of about $28,000.
I'm wondering whether, given that big ask, whether, and I have issues about the special projects, whether we actually don't ask for the special projects this year until we have, and the idea of using it for the treatment plan at Hidden Meadow versus whether that's something that could come out of the conservation fund as a capital improvement. That
Well, here's my
whether,
opinion on that. First of all, last year was our second time of requesting the 6,400 as a special project. And we basically put it in the budget and referred to it as level funding. And that seemed to be acceptable to people. My other thought is that this whole process is going slowly, like municipal budget progress is. And we've been talking about implementing land management with additional funds for over 2 years. And we're not in a position right now to ask for that. But the 6,400 applied to an implementation would be actually, I would look at it as a special project, and I would also look at it as a foot in the door of implementing, you know, such desperately needed management and improvements.
So can I also comment? What I would just say is that the increase in the agent salary is not, I frankly, I don't like to even think of it as an ask. We've already gone and gotten personnel board's approval for making it a 35-hour position. The advisory board, I've talked to them informally at one point, and they're fine with that as long as there's justification and support from the personnel board and the select board. And I've had no indication from the select board that they're not supportive of it as of yet. So those hours are going to increase. I don't think we need to balance it out by trying to step down on a special projects flat, you know, sort of level funded thing. That'll be our third year of that when nobody's shown any sign of that being a problem. And so I think to sort of anticipate going backwards in our budget, because for when there's been no indication that there's any issues with the present budget, I think is a mistake. Carol, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I feel exactly the same way. And I feel like I echo what Jean said. We've talked about this for a long time. We have invasive management issues, and it will be really good to see if, the town is willing to support for us to continue to do a good job with managing these public lands. So, and we know from invasive management that the longer you let it go, the more it spreads. So I'm fully in support of this.
Okay, Courtney, you had your hand raised. Thank you, Carol.
Yeah, I agree. I think we should ask for what we need. And, if it's not in the town's budget in the grand scheme of things, like advisory will tell us that. But we have to tell them what we need, and that's the only way we're gonna get the money. And I don't think it's held against us if we say, like, this is what we need to do a good job managing the land that we're responsible for.
Right, and I would say also that when we first talked about expanding the agent's hours, the people that were receptive to it, which is almost everybody, sort of that was exactly the signal, which is, well, if you need it, then we can't say no, and that was certainly David Williams' response. And for this year, he was going to find the funding where he had to find it for the expanded hours, and next year would go into the budget. And we justify it because there is a need. I presented it to the select board. And again, they were initially receptive as long as we went to the other boards that were involved and made sure that we could do it. But I agree with Courtney that, this is what we need. And frankly, it's still at a low end, but here we are. And I don't think we should give ground in anticipating something that nobody's really expressed yet.
I think it would reflect well on our level of seriousness. If we wanted, I feel desperate about this, but if we wanted to begin to implement land management in this little way, it's $6,400. It's one field, but time's a wasting. Things are changing. I'll just say I was at Barber a couple of days ago, and the fields have not been mowed yet because the guy can't get to it, but there's actually bittersweet growing in the fields because we've had so much rain this year. That's bad. we have to keep our eye on this stuff. We have to start to address it.
Okay. Any other comments?
I guess I guess, do we have to specify the special projects fund of the 64? Are we deciding at this point whether it's going to be for Hidden Meadow treatment or whether we're still going to consider some other possibilities? I'm just curious whether we're defining that at this point or whether we can come back and think about what are the highest priorities, whether it's invasives at the Barber or Hidden Meadow or.
Yeah, I think the general notion that Kelly and Jean and I discussed was that that instead of doing more inventory, since we'd inventoried for the four sort of highest priority properties, that we would use that money to implement some of the recommendations that were made in those inventories. And Jean, I don't know if we're definitely, I don't know if you want to say it's Hidden Meadow, that's the project, and have that discussion tonight, but I don't necessarily think we need to. But if Jean, if you think that that's kind of, we had already decided that, I'm open to discussing it.
Well, it can't be my decision. It is a strong priority of mine. I think loosely the number fits with the size of the project. But so I think we should just decide tonight whether or not we want to, the question is still before us. Do we want to get 2 more inventories done, or do we want to start implementation? And I don't think we need to decide tonight what the implementation is, but maybe, in time for the advisory.
Yeah, we should put it in when we put in the budget narrative. I think we should specify what it is that we would use that special projects money for. But how do people feel about using it for implementation versus more inventories?
I'm for implementation as opposed to inventory. It's just a matter of whether we have to pick what it is tonight, or whether we can define it later if they're.
Okay. Cindy, what do you think? You have got your hand raised.
Implementation. I'd go for implementation.
Okay. Anybody else? Carol, Courtney, you want to weigh in?
Implementation.
Yeah, I would say the same. I think that's a good idea.
Okay, well then, I don't think we need to make a big decision about the rest of it. I mean, let me ask this. Does what Jean is proposing about sort of this invasive strategy for Hidden Meadow, does that seem like, I mean, I'm sort of contradicting myself here a little bit, but it's more of like I want a sort of a straw poll, because if, in other words, if everybody's like, yeah, let's just do Hidden Meadow, then we might as well just say that
Yeah,
that's our decision.
I would go with Hidden Meadow. I think it seems reasonable to go for Hidden Meadow. It seems like it's a good size project for the money.
Okay. What do Michael, Carol, Courtney, what do you think?
I mean, I guess I just have to go. I mean, I can't remember what the recommendations are of the others or read the other reports to know how to rank it. And I haven't been able to have time to read the recommendations to see how urgent it is there versus dealing with stuff at Barber or places where we've already made an investment, or whether at the corner of Mill, whatever it is, the field where we had the swallow wart down on Mill Street, whether that's getting its attention, or whether that already is going to be covered. So yeah, I don't have a basis to say.
Okay. What do other people think? Courtney, Carol?
Jean, I guess the question is, I apologize if this was in something you shared and I didn't see it, but have the the group who made the recommendation, did they say this is the cost for Hidden Meadow alone? I guess I'm not clear on that.
No, we ballparked it, and we talked about it being a two-pronged thing, that if you're going to send somebody in there to Hidden Meadow to cut just certain areas 3 or 4 times a growing season, and the person that you're sending in does not necessarily know how to identify wild parsnip, for example, that the first part of this would be to come up with a way to demarcate the different patches of the invasives. So there would be a cost associated with that of, I don't know, $1,000. And then, we threw numbers back and forth. It sounded like 64.40 would be possibly a good fit amount for making this for 1 year. But so their recommendation is to do multiple cuts of the bad invasives 3 or 4 times a growing season, and to do that for 3 or 4 years in a row.
But you're talking about $6,400 is just covering only 1 year?
That's right.
Wow, just seems expensive, but yeah, compared to other things we were doing. But
It's a lot of time. And they're not talking about using a mower. The way that they picture this being, so the meadow has these patches of obnoxious things, but it also has areas that are beautiful and doing well. So their recommendation was not to just go in there and swipe through it, the whole thing, 3 times a year, but to go to isolated patches and weed whack them 3 or 4 times a year. So that's a lot of man hours.
Yep. And would they actually do the work, or would we have to find somebody to do the work?
Oh, no, they don't do that kind of work. They could possibly help us with the identification piece.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's fine. Obviously things grow back. So I think one thing we should be aware of is, like, if we commit to this here, one thing that, that we've kind of learned at the Barber is you can do a really thorough job 1 year, and then you just have to, well, I think we all know this, you just have to stay on it. So, I think in a way it's good to start off, but maybe we have to start setting more expectations with the boards around town that if we're going to really get rid of these invasives, these have to be multi-year programs.
That's what we have to start attacking next spring, is coming up with an overall plan.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's something that Jean has expressed she's really excited about having me spend time on.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Hooray for a 35-hour agent. Yay. All right. Okay. So it sounds like we're sort of generally have a consensus. I know, Michael, you're, maybe outstanding in that you haven't had a chance to evaluate. Let's just sort of move on to other topics. Jean, did you want to talk about the MACC staff membership stuff as putting that in there? Do we want to talk about maybe using state filing fees for that? I can't remember where we came down on that.
Give me a second, because I've got so many things going around. Yeah, so I've been exploring the budget with Deb Seifring, who is our interim accountant, and she's finally talked in my language, and now I understand the different filing fees and where they are and how much they are and how they can be used. So thank you, Deb. But we are accruing state filing fees, and we have hardly used them at all. We have $37,000. They can only be used for wetlands related work. And we have to get permission from the select board to use them. So I think, Neil, this is where we were going to talk about different items for purchase, correct?
Yeah.
Did you say 37,000?
I did, yeah.
Correct.
That seems so, okay, that was so much different than what we saw just a couple of years ago.
Yes.
That's sort of strange, but okay.
Had a lot of fees since then.
What's
What?
that?
We had a lot of fees since then.
Yeah, but not the state fees. The state fees are very small.
They are, but we haven't been using them. That's the
We've
reason.
never practically never used them.
I think the last
Um,
time they were
so-
spent was when Allery got the new computer.
Yeah.
So basically what we talked about as a subgroup was that there were like 2 or 3 things that we were thinking we would not put in the budget, but instead go to the select board for use of those state filing fees, since they're sitting there and they have this purpose. And one of those would be Anna needs an auger, because our auger disappeared, so we need that. Also, we got some wetland delineation training from BSC when Anna first started. So we might use state filing fees for that, because that's certainly wetland protection. And then the last thing we've talked about a little bit, because it came up in the context of Elizabeth, was potentially finding using or hiring a minutes clerk to just do that work. But instead of wanting to put those things in the budget, is everybody comfortable if we kind of ball them up and I go ask the select board if we can access those state filing fees for those purposes?
Well, we wouldn't be putting them in the budget. We're talking about
That's what I'm saying.
what we have right now.
What's that?
These are not things for fiscal year 23. These are expenses we have right now.
Except for the minutes clerk, which
Right.
might kick into next year.
Right.
So I guess all right, you're right about that. The auger and the wetland delineation training is stuff that we're going to do this year. I don't think we can vote on it because it's not on the agenda. It's a separate thing. But just that sort of stuff, like the minutes clerk or anything like this, is everybody just sort of conceptually comfortable with not putting it in the budget to kind of keep it out of the budget? But since we have these funds that are related to wetland protection that are just sitting there, that we actually use them for things like this.
I just have a question about how you said that these fees have to be used on wetlands, but how is the minutes clerk
Yes.
a wetland? I don't understand that. I understand how the other 2 are associated with the wetlands. I don't have that same linear.
It's our regulatory activities. Right,
It's
Jean?
actually pretty broad. So this is a list of that MACC provides. I'll just read a couple of items from it. Let's see. This can be used to pay for paperwork, including reviewing applications for completeness, field work, on-site meetings with applicants, public hearings and continuances, anything that's 100% to do with wetlands. It doesn't have to be objects. It can be hours. It can be training. It's a very long list. Training, workshop sessions, material, equipment, preparation of brochures. Okay, everybody hear that? That's money we'd like to spend. So it's a very long list.
Cindy, does that answer your question?
Cindy, I'll send you
I,
these
I guess,
pages.
I guess so. No, you don't have to send, yeah, if you want to send it to me, great. I guess it does. I guess it could also cover the mailing we did at the beginning of the summer.
Yes.
But the minutes clerk, I could see, I don't know whether, yeah, the minutes clerk seems to be on the edge since it's
Yeah,
also a staffing thing that would require
Right, it's not,
personnel board. That one, I would say everything else makes a lot of sense. The minutes clerk I have.
it's
some
not that
concerns about.
straightforward. You're right, Michael, it's not that straightforward. So Deb Seifring was suggesting that we do a swap. That, so Elizabeth's work is 99% to do with wetlands. She administers permits, she hands out permits, she explains permits.
Sure.
The minutes clerk, that's different. So Deb Seifring was suggesting that we, whatever it would cost the minutes clerk for a year's worth of work, something like $3,000, that
Right. I understand where you're
take that
going.
out of the filing fees, pay Elizabeth, and then we take salary money out of Elizabeth's money and pay the minutes clerk.
Okay, so we're also asking for an increase of administrative support. That Elizabeth doesn't have enough time. In addition to the agent. I mean, I don't mean to sound a little conservative about the
It
fiscal.
doesn't
part.
have to be part of the budget. It can be done tomorrow.
Still, it's spending town money, saying that we need more time.
It's not town money.
It's not. The town cannot use that money.
I know, but we could use it for other things too, besides.
It's not town money though. It's wetland protection money.
It's still using more resources for our staff, and whether we're basically saying that in addition to the increased agent. I mean, I'm not in touch with the day-to-day operations that much to know that Elizabeth doesn't have the time to do the minutes and her administrative assistant job. With Anna being full-time is, I guess, my simple question.
Well, let's do that. Let's do this. Hold on. I think some of the points you're raising, Michael, are right, because if we do want to hire a minutes clerk, there's going to be questions as to why. So we should answer those questions. We should not answer those questions in this discussion. This is a discussion about the FY22 budget, and I think we should constrict ourselves to that. I was asking sort of a general conceptual question about, are we okay with sort of keeping some of these things out of the budget? Because we have an alternative source to fund them. The minutes clerk is a little bit more complicated, and we can sort of address that at another time. But Carol, you've had your hand raised for a while, so I want to recognize you.
I feel like I kind of am of the opinion that in general, the town should pay for the salaries of our staff. You know, this town should pay for that. Having said that, I know that this year has been a particularly stressful time for the staff, right? I mean, it's just been a very hard transition, a lot of volunteer time by Jean and other members of the commission. And so I think I feel comfortable with saying, okay, this year we would allocate $3,000. I'm not as happy about the idea of making that something that's going to repeat every year, because I feel like this just seems like a little windfall that would be great for, even for some of these other things we've talked about, like maybe invasive management in wetlands, or, you know, there's all sorts of things that we could do with this money that we kind of, that I'm kind of reluctant to have a lot of it taken away by staff costs. So that would be my input. I'm comfortable with doing it this year, but I would want to re-examine it, you know, when we come around to looking at it again. And I would hope that some of these other needs, and to me, land management is really important, that maybe some of that money could go towards some of those needs.
Okay.
The only thing is that with the state fee funds, like we can't use that for things like land management or other projects. So it has to be directly related to our, you know, enforcement of the Wetlands Protection Act.
It can, Courtney, it can be used for field work, but it has to be specifically directed at wetlands.
Right. So if we
What do
wanted
they
to do a
define as field
project,
work? What do they define as field work? Do you know?
They don't define it.
So again, I think this is a really worthwhile discussion to have. And I think we should get really clear about what those state filing fee funds can and can't be used for. But again, this is a discussion about the FY22 budget, or 23 budget. Is it 23? I always get myself confused because it wraps the year. So I'd like to just, and also it's 7:56. So what I'd like to do is make a motion that we, let's see, what is my motion? That we level fund the $6,440 for special projects, specifically for Hidden Meadow invasives management. That we go and do what we need to do to ask for the 35 hours for the agent in the budget, whatever the increase ends up being. And that's it. Is that it? Did I miss something?
No, that's it.
I have a motion.
Second.
I'd like to
Thank
make a little suggested amendment of that the level fund, that we're level funding all of our other direct costs, including the special projects, but that it's for Hidden Meadow and other high priority invasives, that we make it a little bit more open-ended, because it seems like a lot of money, and if we can free up some to something else.
I'll accept that amendment.
And plus, I think you said that basically we're doing the administrative assistant at just the current level with the 4% increase. Did you include that?
Oh, I did not. I'll take that as amendment as well. Thank you for that. Yes, there will be a 4% increase.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. All right. So do I have a second for that, for the amended motion?
Second.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor, Carol,
Aye.
Jean,
Aye.
Neil, aye, Michael,
Aye.
Courtney,
Aye.
Cindy?
Aye.
Okay, the motion carries. Thank you.
I just wanted to add, if anybody wants to talk to me offline about the impact this year on the administrative assistant's hours and the change that would occur were she not doing the minutes anymore, I'm happy to talk to you about that.
And I think just the notion of a minutes clerk, if I might add, I think we should add that to a future agenda before the end of the year, just so we can have a more fulsome discussion about it. Okay. All right. It's 8 o'clock-ish. So we are reopening the hearing into 2123 Main Street. And I was not, I did go back, so I will say that to make myself able to vote on this project, I did go back and listen to the recording of the last meeting, but I would absolutely appreciate somebody else taking the lead on it, because I'm a little fuzzy on kind of where it left and what's happened in between. So can somebody just from the commission maybe kind of get us up to speed and see what we have left to do?
Well, we could actually ask Brandon. Is Brandon here?
I'm here.
To recount for us the stuff that we talked about last meeting and how he's addressed that.
Thank you.
Certainly. So there was, so for the record, my name is Brandon Barry. I'm with Bowler. We're the civil engineers for the project. I'm also joined with Alex Weatherall, who is the property owner and applicant for the parcel. At the last meeting, I'll kind of break up the items that we talked about into an administrative side, which I'll hit up at the front, and I think are pretty easy to go through, and then some of the plan changes that we incorporated. So on the administrative side, the meeting was opened and it was pointed out that DEP had not issued a file number at that point in time. So we would need to continue regardless of the discussion that preceded that. DEP has since issued a file number. It looked like the fee check may have been held up in delivery, and that's what they were waiting to issue a file number for, but they received that and issued a file number for the project. So that item has been checked. There is a question relative to sending out the mailings and whether or not Elizabeth had been provided with green cards of those. We did provide Elizabeth with copies of the green cards that we sent for the certified mailings. We actually sent them twice. The first time when we submitted our application, we thought we'd be on in October. So we notified for the October 28th meeting, and then we subsequently sent another notification for the November 4th meeting, which is when we were actually on. We provided Elizabeth with both of those green cards. So I believe we've checked the box on that one as well. The third item that I believe has been resolved, because I've not seen a follow-up on it, was relative to the fee check that we provided. There was a question of whether this was a category 1, which was the fee that we had provided, or category 2. Looking through the Wetland Protections Act, the category 1 includes replacement, repair, or new construction of septic systems in wetland buffers. It does not specify whether it's commercial or residential septic systems, just septic systems. So that's why we went with category 1, and then DEP has not issued any comments that they had questions about the fee that we provided. So we assume that was acknowledgement from them that they were in agreement with the category we provided for the project. So I think I'll let staff speak to that at the end, but I believe we've resolved the administrative items on the project. And now, if I may, I will share my screen to make it a little bit easier to run through some of the plan changes that we had made. Here we go. Can everyone see my screen here?
Yep.
All right. So first off, during the site walk, Joyce had mentioned that she thought 2 of these flags, 10 and 11, needed to be pushed slightly into the site, about 5 feet for 10 and 11, or 10 feet for 11. So we have shifted those flags uphill, as Joyce had indicated. As she mentioned, it does not change the 50-foot buffer or limit of work that we're proposing, or the 100-foot buffer to encroach into some of the work we're proposing for the restaurant. So the scope of our work in the 2 buffer areas is unchanged as part of this work, or as due to the shift in the wetland areas there. Secondarily, it was asked if we could add wetland markers. So we're adding the 3 concrete wetland markers at the locations requested. Those will be I believe it's 4-inch by 4-inch concrete posts, 4 feet long. That'll be installed 2 feet in the ground, and then have the placard on top that'll be provided by the commission. I know at our first meeting, there was some deliberation on what that placard will look like, but we will be sure to get that from the commission and install those per the standards that are being set. Following up on that, it was asked if we could provide details for the siltation barriers that we were proposing for erosion control on the site. So we've added an erosion control in detail sheet. And then also it was requested if we could provide a mulch berm along the siltation barrier that we're proposing. So the limit of our silt fence represents the limit of work that we'll be showing for the septic replacement, starting at the east here, around the area that we'll be clearing and regrading to install the septic system, and then along the tree line just to protect from all the construction activity within the site. The siltation barrier will be made up of 3 components. The first will be a small mulch berm, and be about 6 inches high, that will sit at the uphill side of our siltation barrier. Behind that will be a 12-inch straw wattle. Those are a black fabric that gets stuffed with straw and other materials that'll be laid along this line with stakes in it to hold that in place. And then behind all of that will be a traditional silt fence, what you normally see on these sites. So we'll have 3 forms of erosion and sediment control around the limit of work here, being installed at the 50-foot buffer, not inside of it, at that line or in front of it, to ensure that we're not creating any disturbance within that area. Additionally, Joyce had mentioned the outfall from the small area drain that we have here was pushed closer into the wetlands and coming out actually more in this area. She had asked if that could be pulled in. So instead of having a discharge very close to the 100-foot buffer, we're able to provide a discharge in this area, some riprap to dissipate flow that's coming out of there, although we anticipate it to be very minor flow, and then a very lightly sloped, swaled and grass area for stormwater to sheet flow over, provide some additional infiltration and filtration before getting into the 100-foot wetland buffer. And I believe those are the items that we had discussed relative to making plan changes. One other item that had come up during the discussion was during the site visit, there was some Japanese knotweed identified within the wooded area to the rear of our site. We had discussed this with, we had mentioned we would talk with our landscape architecture department to talk about best management practices for removing that. In talking with them, this is not a species that we can just remove superficially. To really effectively remove this, and I think there was some discussion about, invasives being really a long-term thing over many years, but to effectively remove that, we'd have to remove what's seen on the surface, then also remove a lot of the soil and screen that so that it can be removed. So what we would like to do is in the treed area, here's the existing tree line you can see through here, and we'll be pushing that out a bit to grade for our proposed system. What we encounter here, this soil will be being removed. So it gives us the opportunity to remove what we see on the surface Also pull out that soil that will need to be removed from the old system and that has the roots in it and remove those. But we prefer not to continue to push out into other areas that we're not working. Just because we'll be chasing slopes, we'll be needing to remove soil, it generates additional erosion, and we're already close to the wetland. This is really more of a functional project where we need a functional septic system. So we prefer to kind of keep that limit of work tight and not provide too much additional disturbance. So within the limit of work we've identified, we will work to remove that species in accordance with best management practices. But extending it out beyond what we're currently planning, we feel like will create additional disturbance in the wetland that may have more negative impacts to the area than allowing that species, that's been there for a while to persist, except where we are currently working. And I believe with that answers the questions that we had been asked. We had provided these revised plans to staff. I know Anna provided some questions and we had provided some follow-up on that. And I don't believe there's any other questions. I don't want to speak for staff. I will obviously let her go. But if there's anything else, we can certainly provide additional questions or information as needed.
Okay, Michael, did you want to ask something?
Sure. Thanks for all the changes. Two things. One is in the area that you're talking about where you're doing the grading and you would do some sort of invasives, that area that you're just circling there. What are you going to do in terms of whether we need to know what it is you're going to plant there, whether we need plantings or we need something to fill the vacuum that nature abhors.
Most of this would be just hydroseeded plantings. This will be off grading for the system for the separation we need to groundwater. So this is a 3-to-1 slope as we head back in. So it's not the most conducive to long-term growth of any substantial species. Also with it being with the septic system, giving that a buffer to any significant plantings so that there's no interference with the root systems into our trenches or anything. So the plan would be in this area where the septic system is to do, essentially grass and ground clover, potentially more of a wild or slope stabilization mix. And we have like a conservation mix that we sometimes use that has some taller grasses.
That we often have specified that basically that's specified on the plan, what you're actually doing for the seeding, which conservation mix. But then going for the area down below just outside the barrier, is it all what would you put there and that sort of where the cursor is now?
Outside the barrier, we would leave the natural area as is, just because we're approaching that 50-foot no disturb.
But in that area right where you're there now,
right
so
here,
you're saying that all that area there would just be some sort of seed mix, conservation seed mix.
Seed mix, and then the tree lines we show are roughly a canopy line. So if there are species at the toe of this slope that are able to be maintained in the proposed condition, if there's some saplings or other trees that are at the bottom of the system, we would look to maintain those as applicable, but really just kind of a conservation seed mix through that area.
Okay. And the markers, I see 2 of them. I'm missing the third one.
There's one right here, which will be
okay, there it is.
Closest point to the 50. Another one here, which is at another point where we're near the 50.
Yeah, it was the first one.
On this other area here.
I'm going to bring up to the commission the issue of that we've struggled with before, that there's a certain, I generally have an issue of whether we're getting so wedded to the 50-foot no alteration zone with these markers versus whether these markers are applicable even at the 100-foot buffer limit. For example, the first two on the left, obviously, are at the edge of work. And I'll just raise it as an issue of whether that marker shouldn't be at the 50, but should be at the limit of work closer to the 100-foot. The 100-foot obviously is already developed, but basically somewhere along where the limit of work is, like if you move your cursor towards the limit of work there, and maybe a little to the right, somewhere around in there, whether that's a more appropriate place for the marker, because that's where we don't want people throwing things over the edge and stuff like that.
I think what you're saying, Michael, makes sense, especially in this particular example.
Yeah. So that's the only change I would suggest, is that moving the marker to the limit of work somewhere halfway between the property line and like whether it's in the red or a little bit more to the left there so that people see it.
Somewhere there.
Yeah,
But this area is really wooded, so it'd be, if someone was back in that area, you really wouldn't see that marker till you're almost at the no disturb. Putting it closer
Yeah.
to the 100, to make people aware would make sense. These were kind of the 3 locations we had discussed at the last meeting, which is why we
Yeah.
showed them there. Obviously, if the commission feels there's a better location, we'd be amenable to that.
yeah, okay, so just moving it up towards there is my main change, and then specifying maybe the seed mix there that we talked about. That's it for me.
Brandon, the erosion control measures that you described, I didn't have a chance to look at your revised plan. Are they detailed on your plan?
We have a note relative to the mulch berm, and then we have, so this is called out where the siltation barrier is proposed. It will be a combination of both the silt sock we have and then the filter fabric behind it, the silt fence behind that. And then we've called out for a 6-inch mulch berm to be installed in front of those as well.
Okay. Back to the Japanese knotweed.
Mhm.
The portions of the plants that you're thinking about have to remove in order to install your system. What are you going to do with what you remove? Where's it going to go?
It would be, we'll make sure we work with the contractor. It won't be dumped on site anywhere. We will work with them in our team. I haven't concluded exactly where it will be because we don't know who the contractor will be, and we don't want to. We would work with them to kind of come up with means and methods, but we'll be sure to dispose of that in a way that is not going to put it in another place in town where it can spread. It would be appropriately removed and disposed of, in accordance with typical invasive species removal practices.
But it's not typical. It's very atypical. And we talked about this a little bit at the last meeting. Any little piece of Japanese knotweed that gets left on the ground turns into another shrub. So I would feel more comfortable if you got a recommendation from an invasives removal expert and, came back to us. Not that I want to continue necessarily, but came back to the agent with more specific details about how you're going to dispose of that. Nobody's going to want it. Nobody's going to want it in their dump.
No, we agree. And I think working with staff to make sure in providing them with the recommendation that we've seen and conditioning that. And then obviously the project, if an order of conditions is issued, would then need to come back for a certificate of compliance. So I think working with staff to get that recommendation and work with them to make sure that they're in agreement and amenable to the plan that we come up with, I think would be prudent. It's something we're open to. I think trying to, where I mentioned there's not a contractor on board, I think working with them, if they have an invasive species person that they work with a lot, there could be some benefit to having them, having some synergy and familiarity with the person they're working with. Or if they have, never mind someone to make recommendations, but someone actually to do the work that we could work with. I think it's something we're aware of as an issue and want to handle the correct way. I think just in the process of where we are, we don't have that person on board yet. So I think working with staff is something we'd definitely be open to.
Okay, I would encourage you to pursue that right away so that, as the order of conditions is getting drafted, we can potentially include those specifics in the order.
Yep.
I also wanted to talk about the outfall. I see that you have pulled it back, and just now you mentioned installing a grassy swale or some sort of a settling pool, but that's not shown on the plan. Can we have more specific information about the swale or the settling pool?
It's not so much a settling pool. So the intent is at this flared end section here, we'll have a small riprap pad, probably, maybe 3 feet by 3 feet with some, angular stone that'll help capture some erosion and just dissipate flow as it's coming out of there. And then as we come from the edge of the pipe, this will be at elevation 199 and then to 198 here. So I believe it's about a 40-foot run. So a pretty moderately sloped area that this will be able to run across through a grass area. So it's not a very well-defined, it's a sloped area that water will run across. But that's really what we're detailing at this point is a small riprap pad and then just a sloped grass area. And you can kind of see this contour comes in and kind of creates that slight depressed swale to channel water this way.
Okay, I'm just going off of what I learned from Joyce Hastings, who isn't here this evening, but so I'm not an expert on this, but she said that since you have not provided us with any sort of number of how much, I don't even know what the right word is, how much
Flow and quantity.
flow, thank you, comes out of this at, at the worst possible time, at the highest rate of rainfall, what have you. Since we don't have that, she felt that some sort of a settling area or a swale, or what'd she call it? A plunge pool needed to be, constructed at the end of the outfall. That just having it pass down the grassy slope, we don't know how much we're talking about. It could erode right into the buffer zone.
So I think the plunge pool that she's talking about and kind of that riprap pad, or sometimes it's called the scour hole, is accomplishing the same thing, where this isn't, if this was a pipe that was just going out to grass, you could have water coming out at a high rate. It is a relatively small area on the site that we're collecting it from, so we don't anticipate a large amount of water coming through there. But where it's not coming directly to grass to kind of start that erosion and rilling, it's going to hit this pad that'll have some large rocks in it. That will kind of protect that direct area from erosion and rilling, acting as that plunge pool, or as a scour hole is another word that we've used for it here. And then water will kind of slowly trickle out more in a sheet flow, not what I believe Joyce is looking to avoid is when you have water coming out of there, it's channeled. And it's almost, when you get heavier flows in larger areas, not so much this one, it can almost come out like a faucet or a hose. If you've ever seen a hose that's kind of left on half and it sits on some grass, it's just digging into the grass area. And that's because there's nothing to really dissipate any of the energy coming from it. That's what this riprap area would provide, is these rocks would take kind of that first flush of water. And again, it's a pretty small area, so it's not a large amount of water that we're anticipating. Those rocks would take a lot of that. And then what then comes out of that area, like I said, will probably be, roughly 5 to 6 feet long here. Then comes out much slower. Some of it will actually get trapped in here, so it also attenuates it and slows the flow down and reduces the overall volume that's coming out at any time and reduces the rate. Then you kind of get a more subtle, flow across the grass area that really isn't as prone to erosion as if this was just an open pipe fall.
So what is the profile of the area with the riprap? Does it have some depth to it?
It will have a couple inches or so. So where this is, and then this contour is drawn in a shape here where it kind of bends up and in. You can see the other one here. Those are kind of creating, this is how you would represent a swale on the plan. So this will be relatively, maybe a couple inches to the bottom of this pad, and then about 4 inches of stone itself there. So there's some room for that water to dissipate in and around the stones. It's a couple inches below the outfall of the pipe. So it comes in, hits that, and then slowly dissipates out. So it is a slightly depressed area here to really channel that into it and make sure that any water coming out of this pipe will go through that scour area, so that it is providing that erosion protection that we're looking for.
Brandon, did you consider more of a rainwater effect where you're using also vegetation to slow it down rather than just having it be grassy? I think I forget what those are called. They're called like rain.
I think you're thinking of like a rain garden or
yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. Something a little bit like that.
We're creating that effect a little bit at the upstream area here, where we have this, this slight depression in this area where most of our water is coming from. It's really the sidewalk at the building, and then just this landscaped area up in this front area, at the front of the building. So there's not a lot of area that we're taking in. This whole area is depressed slightly into a slight bowl. And then this catch basin is actually raised up about 2 inches above the bottom of that. So water doesn't run directly into that so that it quickly goes out through our pipe. It'll actually sit in that area, infiltrate into the plant bed a little bit. And then when it gets up to, it attenuates a little bit there, it'll start going into the area drain. So this area acts to kind of, attenuate a bit of the water and slow down that flow. So that, while it's a small area, it's also getting some attenuation and infiltration here before coming out. Really this is being set as a fail-safe so that nothing gets up into the building.
But I'm wondering whether, and grass is just so, in some ways, so fragile, right? And there's so many of these, with climate change, we have so many of these just enormous storms, just water pouring out of the sky, that it just seems like it's unusual conditions. So that's where I'm wondering whether one other way that you could augment here is, some plantings that'll slow down. If there is a rush of water coming out, it gets slowed down, because grass feels like it's not going to do a lot of slowing.
So that's really that initial slowing that we're looking for. We're accomplishing through the riprap like scour hole here, where instead of it being plantings or mulch that's kind of taking the brunt of any potential flush coming out of this pipe, it's that stone area that can really hold together itself. Like I said, it will be depressed slightly below the pipe and then also have about 4 to 6 inches of stone there. So the water won't just run right across the top of that. It will kind of, impact the stones and then trickle in and around them, filling in some of those void spaces, almost filling that area up a little bit before it then kind of overtops. And then you can almost think of it as, if a pool gets too full and you kind of slowly see it, spread off the side, it doesn't come out of that area in a channelized flow. It kind of comes off in just a sheet of water. So really I think what you're looking for us to accomplish, where the plants kind of slow down that first flush, we're looking to do with riprap, which is a pretty standard thing that we'll do, and I think is slightly more effective for the use and what we're looking for in this area.
I had a question about going back to where the knotweed is. I was just curious, does the knotweed penetrate more past, you have the tree line there, and I remember when I was on site there was knotweed exactly, it was knotweed along there, more kind of to the left a little bit. There was a big stand of it, but how far toward the wetlands does that penetrate? I was just curious, does it go much beyond the limit of work?
I do not know off the top of my head how far that penetrates in beyond the limit of work. It's something that we'd have to confirm it with a field visit or talking with our wetland scientist who originally delineated there.
Yeah, because I'm hopeful maybe you can get most of it in the process that you were talking about of the, actually digging out the dirt there.
Anna, did you talk to Joyce about the fee issue?
No, I did not.
So I personally feel like that's unresolved. I think you said at the beginning of this discussion that you had consulted with DEP about the fee, Brandon?
Well, we hadn't had a chance to talk to the representative, but typically if DEP has questions on the fee, that will be when they provide their comments on the project. They would say, project category miscategorized or project miscategorized, provide category 2 fee or whatever the category may be. Where their comments where they've come in and said they have no comments, that typically is representative of that and not questioning the category that we had or the fee that was provided.
So my experience, my experience is that they don't, at least in the past, they did not even look at the fees. And I remember that Joyce raising this at the first portion of the hearing, that because of that outfall, that she was suggesting that this project also be category 2 G, each project source storm drain discharge. So I'm going to put that out there to the commission. This, despite the design of the trap rock, rip rack, it seems very clear that the discharge is going to reach the buffer zone. So I'm just wondering if this is categorized appropriately.
I think when Joyce had talked about it, it was, kind of having the outfall pipe, in this location where there was what would be, the pipe itself is a point source coming out at the area. And I think through our conversation at the last hearing, she had said, pulling it back, providing some sort of riprap protection or some sort of erosion protection at the outfall, and then allowing it to to sheet flow from the outfall, and I think we'd even discussed roughly this location as being where it would make sense to come out, then it's more of just a sheet flow, and it's representative if we were to decide to not have this fail safe and just look to regrade this area and swale it out the back, it would be very similar to that situation as well, which we could do. We have the ability to swale it, but obviously where we have a depressed area and then a building that's lower than some of the surrounding areas, we'd like to do what we could to make, reservations to prevent stormwater from potentially backing up in this area should the swale get impacted or blocked, or there are those, larger storm events, and then have it running into the building. So I think when she had represented the point source, the question was more because we are outfalling right at the 100-foot buffer, and pulling it back in, we're no longer a point source discharge there, where a sheet flow, which is representative of what the existing conditions are.
What is the distance from the outfall to the 100-foot buffer?
About 37 feet.
It's the 50-foot buffer.
No, that's the 100.
That's the 100.
That's the 100.
My apologies.
I'm a little concerned that it's enough outside of our jurisdiction. that
Well,
this-
he made the point that I'd forgotten, that the original design had the outfall pretty
It was-
close to the buffer
It was
zone.
roughly in
right.
this location. So I think, talking at the first hearing, when Joyce had referenced it being a point source discharge, I think, I would not have disagreed with that, but I think with, I thought we had kind of discussed that pulling this back would remove this really from being a point source discharge into the wetlands, where now it's more of a sheet flow across this area, going out in that way. And I thought the other item she had relative to category being 2 versus 1 was that 1 was traditionally reserved for more residential uses.
Right.
Yeah, when I read it, I don't see, it seems like it's hard to make it not a category 1. And I guess when we condition this, we just have to basically have a condition about erosion. That there's monitoring of erosion in that area, for any erosion in that area. And then it would just be a violation if there is erosion that shows up there. I think that's one of the only tool we might have to really do more with this. I think it's hard for us to press for more changes, given where it is outside of jurisdiction.
Michael, it sounds like you're volunteering to help Anna write the order.
Nice try.
I have one last question for you, Brandon, which is getting back to the knotweed. So how are you going to suppress? Obviously, we'd like to have that suppressed over time. So maybe you mentioned before, how do you plan to manage that area over the septic system there that you're regrading?
So I had gotten some information, and I am not a knotweed or invasive species removal specialist. So I'd gotten some information and had some conversations about, best practices to remove it. I think, implementing some, whether it's a herbicide that's sprayed in that area or what may be done, I think that would be something I'd really like to, if we are going to add a condition about getting an invasive species specialist to help and coordinate with staff, I think that's something I'd really like to let them kind of speak to, so that I don't speak out of turn or say something outside of kind of my specialty here.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea too. But it would be a good thing to include in the order of conditions, because not only does it help the wetlands, but it actually will really help the septic system to continue functioning.
Yep.
So if there's going to be some future recommendation from a specialist about treatment, then you'd have to bring that back to the commission.
Well, that's how we recondition it, right? A little point of order, I don't know, for Neil. I assume Coolidge, right, it's 8:30, I assume Coolidge Crossing is being continued,
It is.
whether we need to
Let's do that.
close this hearing and reopen it in 5 minutes, in 2 minutes.
Let's do
And then
that.
after we extend the other one, just to get it out of the way.
That's a good point. All right, let's I move that we continue this hearing to 8:33 PM this evening.
Second,
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, Jean,
aye.
Neil, I, Michael,
Aye.
Carol,
Aye.
Courtney,
Aye.
Cindy.
Aye.
All right, the motion carries. Sit tight, Brandon and Alex. All right, I move, so we're going to reopen the hearing into 8486 Coolidge Street. And I move that we continue it to December 2nd at, do we have a time, Elizabeth?
9 p.m.
9 p.m.
Second.
I have a
Thank you.
question.
Hold
Just a
on.
quick-
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I have a second. So discussion, go ahead.
I just have a quick question. Why is this being, it was continued last meeting too. Why is it continuing to be continued?
We're waiting on two items. One is stormwater conditions, and the other is some information that the applicant is slated to get to us.
Thank you.
It was at their request, Cindy.
Okay.
And they can always request it. Yeah.
Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor, Jean,
Aye.
Neil, I, Michael,
Aye.
Carol,
Aye.
Courtney,
Aye.
Cindy.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. I now reopen the hearing into 2123 Main Street. So where were we? Sorry.
I think we're just trying to resolve what the conditioning might be for the, I think we're gonna have a condition on the erosion control, on watching out for erosion in that area. In general, we're gonna be conditioned for erosion. Maybe a particular focus on that outflow there, as well as anything around the grading of the septic system. And then the issue is whether we can resolve how we're gonna condition the issue with the invasives management with there, so that we can write a condition that's that there'll be an invasives plan of some sort that'll come for the commission. So that, I mean, I'd like to think we can close the hearing tonight by developing a condition that says that there'll be a plan for some ongoing management of that will come to that'll just have to be approved by the commission later, as a way to get ahead of doing that. Because I mean, dealing with that bamboo is such a tough one, that I'm not sure it's a matter of whether it's just constant mowing of that area, or even the area where you're going to seed. I can believe it's going to be just annual mowing of that might help keep it back down. But since we're not in favor of chemical use in general, it's going to be a tricky one of just hopefully limiting it from expanding much, is our experience. But I think it's just a matter of how we're going to write a condition and whether people feel comfortable. I mean, I'd like to think we could write a condition or talk through a condition tonight that we would all feel comfortable with, so that we'd feel comfortable closing the hearing. But I'm not sure if there's any other issues that are really outstanding to discuss beyond those.
So are there any other issues besides what Michael just articulated that we need to address?
I don't have any.
Okay.
Yeah, I think on the knotweed, the main thing to consider there is that I kind of have it would be good to get expert opinion on this, but I have a feeling that once we mow it back, that'll open up this, it'll kind of open up to sun, and that whole, if there's more knotweed behind it, it'll just expand into the sunny area at the edge, right? So I'm just bringing it up as something to consider as we think about a management plan, that it might actually expand it toward the wetland just inadvertently by opening up the sun.
Talking about in the area that they're going to grade,
Yeah,
we're just
that's-
talking about the area that's going to be graded anyway, and they're removing soil and putting in, and then they're seeding. I don't see that there's much choice, because they're going to be working in that area anyway. It's inside.
Oh,
the
I don't mean that, Michael. I mean, it just occurred to me, yes, they have to do all that and manage it, but then I'm just bringing up the idea that the area outside the limit of work, if there's more knotweed out there, and it now becomes more sunny, that may just kind of fill in with knotweed. I just think that's something for the commission to think about.
Yeah, I mean, where they're working, I don't remember knotweed going just on the other side of the limit of work. I think it was a little to the left and around there, but I'm not sure. But the question is, what are we going to do for an order of conditions about that issue, other than it's going to happen, and the knotweed's going to keep expanding to some extent anyway. I mean, I'm not sure whether within the scope of this project that we can get them to hold back the tide of some of that, or how that could be expected to be done.
I think it would be helpful if they're going to get an expert opinion anyway, to have advice on that, on how to limit
But is
it.
that something we're just writing as part of a condition, that basically they're going to come forth with some invasive management plan from somebody that will be subject to commission approval? Is that the kind of condition that we could all live with?
That's what I was hoping for.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
Is that
it's
something that makes sense to you, Alex and Brandon?
I wonder if, just to close the hearing, if we are going to close it, and then it's something that does need to be, brought back to the commission's attention, if it's something that we could work with Anna and staff on, like I said, it's probably something that we'll be working to get someone on board, and it's, given the condition and what we're dealing with, it's something we want someone to go out and walk the site and really understand what we're dealing with and come up with a site-specific plan, not just let me pull this off the shelf and this is what we typically do. So I wonder if it's something we could work with staff on, prior to construction, to come up with that plan, meet with staff on site to review that plan with them, and then staff could bring that back to the commission to discuss it. And then, as I referenced, there is a certificate of compliance that's required. So when we go to apply for that on the project, we could then re-review staff will walk the project when we apply for that. We could also then follow up to ensure that the plan that was agreed upon with staff was performed in the field, and then discuss it, with the commission during the certificate of compliance, just to get the hearing closed, kind of allow us to progress from having an open hearing that we still need to come back to getting towards construction, where this is actually going to happen.
I mean, that's what we normally do, actually.
Yeah.
Is that the staff, you work with staff, and the staff, they come back and they bring it to us.
That's
But
just as I was hearing the commission, I don't want to remove the commission's power to have a chance to review it and sign off on it and give their blessing, but attending subsequent hearings, to discuss if it is just a plan that's relatively amenable versus getting some comments on it. If it's something that staff could work with the commission on as we bring this to their attention, I think we'd be open to that, but kind of keeping the hearing open with a.
Oh, no, we would not.
Yep.
I don't
Yeah,
think-
typically what we do is, we have the agent or staff interface, and we write the condition where it's kind of with the agents. So, I mean, I don't know if we use the word approval, but that idea, just as
Yep.
long as there's mutual agreement on it, then
I think that's from the discussion, that was the only point that I had heard, was just the coming back to the commission and potentially having just a hearing that's open while we work to get there. Because like I said, it's probably something that will occur closer to the construction period on the site.
No, we often, I think, have written it that it's the agent approval, but the agent basically will come to us if they're not comfortable with it all. But it's all part of after the order is in place and everything else like that. So it's just, we just work it out to be practical when you're doing your work. So we have a condition that we roughly all sort of agree on in terms of having that brought forth, and it would be approved by the agent, who would in turn come to us if necessary, but that would be in the order of conditions, essentially. So I guess, what other special conditions do we want to talk about before we close the hearing?
I think that's it.
Okay. Then, because what are we going to do after this? Are we going to move to, because essentially with all of these conditions, we're going to basically move to approve the project. I mean, we've gone different ways, whether we have to get the whole draft order done versus we've approved the project, and then the order just gets written in the next week or two, but versus coming back at our next meeting with the with the order and the findings then.
I think if usually we do that, we do it all at once when we have a draft of the order, which we don't have. So I think unless other commissioners feel differently, I think we can close now and then at the next meeting, approve and read out the findings.
Okay, and then we would send the draft to them too before one, and then,
Sure.
okay. So I move to close the hearing.
Second. Oh,
But is this,
all right.
sorry, if I could, does this mean that it's been approved then, but we'll have to adhere to conditions downstream?
Technically, no, we're closing the hearing. There's nothing outstanding. We will move to approve at the next meeting once we've drafted the conditions and the findings.
So I've got to have Brandon come back for a third meeting?
We can,
Not necessarily.
we'll get a copy of the draft conditions, Alex. I can read them, confirm with you that what is in those conditions is in line with what we had discussed. If there's any questions, which rarely happens when we get these draft conditions, we can work with staff on any suggestions. And we can then say, this is all good, and I likely do not need to come back because there won't be discussion at that hearing. They will just say, here are the conditions, vote to approve the project and move on. So it'd be something you could sit in if you wanted to, but you would not necessarily need to have me come back.
Yeah, I just don't, I'm not any use here. I just, I'm in this thing well over $70,000. I'm trembling with uncertainty as to whether I can even afford it. I can't do this forever. I'm a lay person. We're gonna leave this property significantly better with respect to Mother Nature than it has been in anyone's memory. And I just can't be stretched but so far. So I just get nervous.
So what Brandon has articulated is exactly what will happen. Any sort of questions about what's been discussed and how it actually gets laid out in the order of conditions will be hashed out ahead of time if there are any questions, which again, there rarely are because I don't think there's anything particular in contention here. So
Okay.
it's just part of the process where,
All right.
if we had put together a draft before tonight, we would have done the whole thing tonight, but it's just a matter of we have to take it in sequence. That's all.
No, that's fine. I'm not being combative. I'm just an ignorant.
Understood.
And we can, Alex, I'll be sure, heading into that we're giving you the full thumbs up that you're good to go. So you can just sit in and make sure you get a bunch of yes votes on this. And that's it. So
That's inconceivable.
But I will, we can work offline so that we do not have to be at the next hearing. It is more of a point of order than anything.
Yes.
My job is essentially.
And it's not even a hearing because we're closing the hearing tonight. It's
Yes,
just-
the hearing is being closed. Okay.
Am
So we have a motion.
I like and admire Brandon, but he's expensive.
Okay,
Okay, so we have a motion and a second and any other discussion? All right, all those in favor, Jean?
Aye.
Neil, I, Michael,
aye.
Carol,
Aye.
Courtney,
Aye.
Cindy?
Aye.
All right, the motion carries. So we will have a draft put together. We'll send it your way. Anything that needs to be adjusted, we will do that. And then we will come back together. So we'll put you on the agenda for next meeting. Elizabeth, what time?
8:30.
Okay, so we'll put you on the agenda for, approval to vote to approve and read out the findings then.
Sounds great. I appreciate everyone's
Okay.
time tonight and thank you.
Thank you
Okay.
all.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Have a good night.
I guess the only thing, Brandon, you still there? Whoops.
We lost him.
Just
Yes.
remember that we need just a little revision to the plan with the marker.
Yes. So Anna, can you reach out and remind him about that? Or Elizabeth, whoever would do that?
I guess it's that and also adding what the seed mix is going to be on normally you have that on the plan, what they're going to do for planting.
Okay.
On there, two things.
All right. As a next order of business, why don't we take up this Constitution Village situation that arose this week? Does it make sense? Anna, are you gonna walk us through what's going on?
Yeah, if that's okay.
Please.
So reminding Brandon about moving 2 markers.
One
That's what you said.
marker only.
I'm sorry?
It's just the one marker on the right side that goes towards the limit of work. The one that's at the 50, that's well down the hill.
Okay,
should go up gradient and be basically at the limit of work. Somewhere in that area there between the property line. I mean, I could share the screen, but do you remember?
yeah, and I can check with you if I have uncertainty as I'm writing an email to Brandon.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Steve. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Yes, go ahead, Anna. Sorry.
as well, I think first, I would love to share my screen if I can.
You can.
Is that
Everybody has the ability by default, unless you have some issue. Yes, Elizabeth? Elizabeth, if you're talking, I can't hear you.
She's been having computer issues all night.
Yeah. Elizabeth, if you wanted to chat something, please feel free.
Oh, she's connecting.
Yes.
Well,
The dreaded connection.
Anna, somebody else can share. Okay, go
Oh,
ahead.
here we go.
so? There are two things that I'm going to go over tonight. One is in the agent report that involved Dopping Brook. And the reason I'm pulling up Dopping Brook now is because Sean of DPW, the director of DPW, was out. Can you see my mouse over here out right at the
Yes.
Sherborn Holliston line? That Dopping Brook is right there. This is the rail trail. And so he was out there and he observed this great plume of sediment that was just yesterday. And stop sharing. Stop share for now.
Anna,
And
can you tell me, is Dopping Brook, was that shown in green? What was the green line Dopping
oh,
Brook?
so the
Or is that the wetland marker?
that was the wetland. Yep, that was
Okay.
part of Dopping Brook.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. So I'll go back to my notes for this. So Sean was there and he saw this sediment cloud in Dopping Brook. And Joyce and I went out to up gradient of the rail trail. And we determined that the erosion was coming from this Constitution Village subdivision, which is in Holliston and it's under construction. And at that point, contacted Ryan Clapp, the Holliston conservation agent, and met him at the detention basin to document the issue. The detention basin, which is detention basin C, is not functioning as intended. I would say, well, I'll say a little bit more about that in just a second. So on now put pictures. I'm trying to do multimedia, maybe getting in fancier over my head than I. So
I like the hose that seems to be bypassing the detention basin.
oh yeah, so I absolutely can talk about that. So this is Dopping Brook. This is one of Sean's pictures. And this is looking, this is upstream of the rail trail. So it's not Sean's fault. Has nothing to do with the erosion. So And this is the sediment cloud in Dopping Brook that we saw yesterday. I mean, really seriously turbid water. This is a tributary to Dopping Brook, and in the background, that's Whitney Farm. We're on the Sherborn side of Dopping Brook. And again, a wetland. Joyce identified that it was not only coming through the tributary, it was also seeping through the wetland, this sediment, and as you can see. And that's the picture I sent yesterday. So what Ryan points out in the enforcement order that he sent out today on behalf of Holliston, because the construction site and the detention basin are in Holliston, is that it's not functioning as intended. I want to call it an outfall. This outlet, excuse me, is higher at a higher elevation than the detention basin. So there's no way this can drain it. And so they're pumping it out, and there's some filtration that should be happening that isn't happening. It's not filtering. There should be some filtration in there that's not happening. And so Ryan issued the enforcement order on behalf of Holliston, and that is in the shared folder. He also shared some additional materials should Sherborn decide to do an enforcement order, because Dopping Brook is the town line, and that it, as you can see, it affected resource areas in our town. And on Monday, this coming Monday, is the earliest that there's going to be a site visit with the engineer of the company that has made this violation. And you commissioners and staff, Ryan has authorized us to come to that site visit, should there be interest in that. And I think that's all.
Thank you, Anna. Can I ask a question about this? I'm looking at this photograph of the detention basin.
Mhm.
So I'm trying to understand how it's designed. So the trench that's there with the grate over part of it, is
Mhm.
that supposed to drain the area that's on the left of it?
Yes.
So, and then what is this, it looks like that outlet, it looks like a sort of a culvert underneath in that concrete structure. Is that supposed to drain up gradient, take up gradient drainage? Because I'm trying to figure out where the hose is. And so, sorry, let me isolate my questions. First is the area to the left in that picture that has the the sort of chocolate milk there, is
Mhm.
that what's then going down gradient into what leads to Dopping Brook?
Yes.
Okay. And is the green hose that's there basically taking water that's coming through that concrete culvert looking structure and just bypassing this trench, which is supposed to catch some of it, and just putting it onto the ground to drain down gradient?
I'm not sure I totally understood your question. I'm going to share this again so I can point.
Yeah.
It's unlikely that, the hose doesn't look wet there, but it seems like water is probably just flowing around the whole basin.
So this was a sump pump right here. There was a motor here.
You mean underwater, under that
Yes,
salty
there's
water?
a motor here.
Okay.
Pump-
Inside,
pump-
like to the
pumping.
right or the left of the concrete?
Where my mouse is.
To the
Okay,
left.
To the
outside.
Move your
left.
mouse.
Sorry, to the left.
Basically, where on the left, next to the concrete sort of wall, where the hose goes down toward the grass, there's a sump pump there.
Yep. And
Okay.
so it's coming out. It should be flowing over the top there, if there's enough, if there were enough water in there, it would flow over the top into that rectangular basin.
Right,
And
so
then
basically, sorry,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. No, I
And
was
then
gonna,
flow
I was just,
out to the right.
right, so basically what it looks like, if there's a sump pump there, is that this area was, if it starts to fill with water, the pump's supposed to kick on and put the water down into this trench so that it doesn't end up going the other way into resource areas, but it's not functioning that way.
Is that correct?
Do we
Anna?
really, do we care how this thing is not working as opposed to the fact that they've just got to go get it fixed? I mean, I'm not quite sure how much time I want to
I'm not sure I
decipher.
totally, and
Yeah.
Will, you may be right on. I'm just not totally following how it was supposed to be intended to work.
It's just not working, we know that.
Yeah,
It's pumping, right, it's pumping turbid water into the wetland.
I'm like, we need to issue the violation and
And
then
has been,
go
it
see
has,
it.
No,
Okay,
the question is whether we should, have
So-
we issued a violation?
Basically, sorry, I'll let Anna
sorry.
go ahead. I know a bit about this, but Anna, you were the one talking to Holliston, so go ahead.
so, yes, there's been a cease and desist, is one of the conditions in Holliston's enforcement order.
Right.
And there's a lot more in there, but it's now up to the Sherborn Commission as to whether you want to also do one. And yeah, there's Ashland too, which also has been looped into this as well, just because Dopping Brook also serves as a little bit of the town line with Ashland. I think it's Holliston and Ashland.
Yeah, so it was the Holliston agent's suggestion that all three towns issue enforcement orders, and that might bring about the most rapid results. This is Fafford, basically, a development up
Yeah.
on the hill.
But do we want to issue, but I think an enforcement order is related to an order of conditions. I think we want to do a violation. Is
No, it doesn't have to be related to an order of conditions. It can be related to an immediate impact that needs to be remedied.
Oh, okay, because I couldn't tell what a
Sometimes we use it.
violation is. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
sometimes we use enforcement orders in lieu of an NOI or anything like that, so.
so let's just, I think we should just do one, and obviously the wording has to change because it's not like we have an order of conditions, but obviously they're creating a noticeable impact on our wetlands. So is it just a matter of how we word the thing? Because I think.
Well, I think the idea would be to just piggyback off of what was written by Holliston, modify it for our purposes and issue it.
Right.
And isn't it true that the Holliston agent was suggesting that it would be useful or helpful to have us also issue an enforcement order or some kind of cease and desist?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
yeah,
so,
we definitely need to issue our own, because it's like we have our own interests to look after.
exactly.
And
We have our
and do we also want to talk about any kind of fines?
Well, there's, so the enforcement order that was issued by Holliston is in the Dropbox, and they have what it looks like standard language about addressing the violation in a timely fashion, and if not, you would be subject to fines. Now, their fine amount is $300 per day per violation, and ours is 200, but I think Anna can also use the language in their extended language in their enforcement order to fashion notes from us.
what is timely? How do they define timely?
Immediately.
Well, but it has to be defined within a day, 2 days.
Well, they're going, I didn't take that close a look at what was written, but it's like address the violation immediately, make what's conditions are creating this alteration to the resource area, make it stop immediately.
Have we used some language for that in the past? Does anybody remember?
I'm suggesting that Anna use the language in the Holliston. It's very it's very clear. She just has to change it tweak it just a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good start, but I just, like what Neil said, it's just like, so if tomorrow there's still sediment shooting out, like, does the fining start, or do they have 48 out? You know what I mean? I just,
So haven't
does it
we,
work?
Courtney, haven't we done it the other way, which is we just start finding them and then they address it. And then if it's done, within a certain reasonable time frame, we'll forgive it, right?
If you guys will excuse me, I'll go get my enforcement manual that's upstairs and maybe that will help, but I'll be back.
But it
think
looks
first of
like
all-
they don't have a time frame in their letter.
First of all, it's getting issued by certified mail. So even if she wrote it tomorrow, they wouldn't get it tomorrow. It's, immediately
Yeah.
on receipt of the notice.
yeah.
So why don't, I
But we
mean,
would start fining the next day after they received it, kind of thing.
yeah, I think we should start finding, we haven't even talked about, whatever kind of actual impacts are here and if there's going to be remediation necessary. I mean, this does not look good. But yeah, I think we should start finding them from the day it's received. Elizabeth, did you have something to say?
I did. Just remember, if you issue fines, you have to continue to issue them every day, or you can't issue them. So if you miss Sunday, you have to hand deliver on Sunday because you can't certify mail on Sunday. So if you miss Sunday, you can't issue on Monday. The fines have to cease if you miss a day.
Well, we could start finding, like, I think, Anna, you're going to do this probably on Monday. Write it. And so if we get it sent, I don't know when it would arrive, but we would have at least 5 days of fines before. And look, if they address it over the weekend or something like that, then there's nothing to worry about. Then it's been addressed. But I
But
think
we
we
still
should.
have the fines, but we still have the remediation, as you said.
Also,
That's a
just
separate-
just a reminder, next week is Thanksgiving week, just so there's a day thrown in there with no post office.
Yeah, that's true.
So hold on. So it means that if we do it for 3 days and miss a few days, if the violation is continuing, you're saying we couldn't start all over again?
You cannot start all over again. This was something that Allery and I looked deeply into with the Silverwood when we were issuing them fines.
That's,
And it was determined that it had to be issued every day. And if we missed a day, we couldn't reissue the fine. And I can pull it back up. It's in Carol's enforcement book probably. And we have it in the office. But yes, if you miss a day, basically you cannot reissue unless there is a separate
So
But it's a
violation.
separate, but it is
Okay.
a separate violation if it's still
No,
going
it's still the
on.
same, no, it's still the same violation. It isn't a different violation. If I have a broken pipe that's releasing sediment every day, it's the same violation.
So let's do
Wow.
this, because I don't want to necessarily spend a tremendous amount of time getting into the nitty gritty right now. What I'd like to understand from my fellow commissioners is this: do we want to fine upon receipt of the certified notice, or do we want to give them some period of time to address it and then begin fining?
I don't believe we've ever actually started issuing fines upon receipt of the EO. I think it's always been, here's your EO, here's what we need you to do, here's when we need you to do it, and if you don't do it, then we'll start issuing the fines.
Do we have to start issuing the fines within, like, whatever is this, 10-day period or something from the time that you become aware of it? What's that all about?
Yeah, I remember that.
there's something to do with that. So the clock is ticking.
Question is whether we can get it to the Monday after Thanksgiving.
We have to start issuing within 10
wait.
days.
Wait, if we start issuing fines next Wednesday and we can't use the post office, then somebody has to hand deliver them.
Oh, that's what I'm suggesting next. I'm suggesting the Monday after Thanksgiving. Is that where we
I
start?
think
So-
10 days, somebody has to check me on this, but I think it's 10 days after witnessing the violation.
What is 10 days after witnessing the
You
violation?
can, if you're going to start issuing citations, fines, it has to start within 10 days of witnessing the violation.
Do the
Which is
fines,
yesterday.
hold on, do the fines have to start, or does the notice that you're going to be fined have to be delivered within 10 days?
No, the fines have to start. The notice, we should
Okay.
deliver as soon as Anna can get it out.
Okay.
Can I also, I can read off from the enforcement manual what they
Yes,
say
quickly.
about enforcement orders that might be helpful. Okay. They should say, stop all illegal activity within the Conservation Commission's jurisdiction immediately. It's first of all, it said they should be kept as simple as possible. So first bullet I just read. Second bullet, include a deadline by which the violator must notify the commission in writing of his or her intent to comply. Describe measures the violator must take to stabilize the site plus stage deadlines for doing so. I don't think we're going to have that yet. Require the violator to attend your next Conservation Commission meeting, provide details on date, time, location.
All of those so far, I believe, are in the Holliston order.
Okay, and then require the violator to delineate wetland resource area boundaries as they exist on the date of enforcement, as well as prior to the unauthorized activity. Depending on the complexity of the site, you may need to give the violator reasonable time to hire a qualified professional to perform this work. And I read it earlier, you know, even though they're not, the fact that that the violation is taking place in our wetland jurisdiction applies.
So let's do this. I do want to simplify this for our purposes tonight. 10 days from the date we became aware of it, which is yesterday, is Saturday the 27th. So what we should do is, Anna, you're going to write a note you're going to write this order on Monday. You're going to say you have to address it immediately. If you don't address it by Friday the 26th, we're going to start issuing daily fines. And that way we'll get the fines in under the wire. I will deliver them over the weekend if I must. But this is a bad situation and they need to deal with it. And look, they may, respond to Holliston and do it right away, and then we don't have to worry about the fining. But let's just do it like that.
I'm just a little concerned that if you're gonna be careful, that how you define 10 days.
That's why I said Friday, not Saturday.
Oh, okay, you did say Friday would be the
I did.
day. That's the 10th.
So then I know I'm right. I know I'm under the wire.
So can they do it by Friday, or do they have to have it done on Thursday, and Friday is the beginning of?
We'll start fining on Friday if it's not done before then. So yes, it has to be done by end of Thursday.
Thanksgiving.
Why not? Look, it ain't me dumping mud in there on Turkey Day. It's them. So
Yeah, if it's nice weather, I'll happily go over and look.
yeah, why not? All right.
They're having them report to their commission meeting on November 30th. Maybe might be useful how you rearrange your hours, Anna, whether you can whether it's done by Zoom or not to attend that meeting.
It's virtual.
Yeah, so that I would like to think that, not that I can direct you, but I'll direct to the chair that you get her to go to the meeting.
Right. Anna, do you think you'd be able to attend that meeting? You're muted.
Muted.
There you are.
That's a Tuesday?
Whatever November 30th is, at 7:30.
Yeah, it's Tuesday.
Yep, Tuesday.
Yeah.
Great.
Can do that.
Okay. Do we want to invite them to attend one of our meetings or just see how the 30th goes? I mean, our meeting is the 2nd, so it's 2 days later. We couldn't get them on the agenda. We could invite them in this enforcement, and then always tell them they don't have to attend, I suppose.
Right. I think we should, given what was recommended in the what Carol read.
Yeah.
I think we should invite them because we're going to have, because what's important is a construction sequence with dates for remediation of sediment. Their point 4C is critical because in the end, we're going to need from them something to remediate the impact on the Sherborn side.
Yep.
I think one thing that Holliston didn't include was that include a deadline by which the violator must notify the commission in writing of his or her attempt to comply. I don't see that here unless I'm missing it.
No, you're right. It isn't there, Carol.
I did want to mention one other thing. I'm noticing that Holliston copied the DEP. Are you all aware, you probably are, that, right there, well, I live right near there, right? So I drive by all the time, that's part of the Charles River Natural Valley Storage Area, which is administered by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. And I did just find a document online that's like their planning manual or something for, they I guess they manage over 1,000 acres that includes Stopping Brook. And I suspect they'd want to know that there was a violation going on here because, they're managing this area as a storage area of wetlands that drains into the Charles River. So I don't know if anybody has any thoughts about that or how we could go about notifying them.
Maybe Anna could talk to Ryan about that too, and whether they could put their heads together.
It's a good
on
idea.
that too.
It seems like such a big violation that is going all the way out into that wetlands that maybe they would have more enforcement clout than we do too. I have no idea.
Yeah.
Anna, will you talk to him about that? Okay. All right. Anything else on this?
Do we need to vote to send out an enforcement order?
Well, we can, yeah.
Can't hurt. Is that a motion?
You got it.
Second. Any other discussion? All those in favor, Jean?
Aye.
Neil, I, Michael?
Aye.
Carol?
Hi.
Water Bear?
Hi.
Cindy?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. I'm just gonna start calling you by whatever picture you put up there.
All right.
Like a cardinal flower?
Uh-oh,
Right.
is this gonna mess up the minutes?
And
For
while
roll call
we're,
vote.
I distinctly
Yeah.
remember the chair referring to her as Water Bear. All right.
I'm going to be missing some of my chorus on Tuesday night for this hearing. So
Oh,
it's a very important hearing and I will go.
Thank
well,
you.
you
This
should
is
check
better.
you should check what time they actually have it scheduled for it to say whether it minimizes or whether somebody else wants to volunteer and go in your stead.
Mm,
Anna, this kind of violation does not happen very often. And
It really doesn't.
I think it's good luck or bad luck, depending on your interpretation, that it fell into your lap right away.
Yeah.
I think
no,
it's good
this-
luck.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it'd be
Yeah,
interesting to learn how other, and plus to be able to do it in another town to sort of do something jointly.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I think in whatever my tenure on this commission has been, I think I've seen one violation as bad as this.
Yeah, no, it's
One
fairly
other.
widespread when I look at how much.
Yeah, it's really.
It is
everywhere.
incredibly steep over there. I remember when we were doing Whitney Farms to look across when they were
Yeah.
starting to work there and saying, holy moly, that is one steep development.
Yep.
Okay,
Okay. All right.
Reminds me of
So
Coolidge Crossing.
what's that?
I said it reminds me of Coolidge Crossing.
Mm,
Okay. Now,
I didn't say that.
I know you didn't. Sometimes humor is misunderstood. All right, let's see. Constitution Village, we talked about minutes clerk. We're gonna sort of take that up at another time. Meeting schedule, is that just a placeholder?
No, I was asking about it because I didn't know what our meeting schedule was for December, but I have now figured it out because you keep talking about December 2nd. So I guess we have not changed. We are still on the 1st and 3rd.
Right, and the upshot was I went and reached out to David Williams about it, and he said that it was, they were encouraging us to wherever possible avoid having a conflict, but at the same time, my feedback to him was that we have regulatory deadlines, 21 days, this days, that, and so it's really hard for us to just kind of vary our meeting time. And so we were going to try to avoid it, but we weren't going to, sort of put ourselves in harm's way from a regulatory perspective. So we're just going to keep with that now. And then if there's anything that comes up on their agenda that we really need to attend to, then that's what we'll do. So he's fine with that. I notified the entire select board about what our approach is going to be and haven't heard anything. So I'm assuming it's okay.
Thanks.
All right. So let's see. What else do we have here? We have expenses.
But we already dealt with that.
We do.
Oh, am I missing something, Anna?
Well, so Joyce recommended a specific auger and I think it would be good for me to have one as, as soon as is reasonable so that I can start auguring.
Yeah, but I think we talked about, I'm sorry, I can't remember. Did we decide we're going to purchase the auger using the wetlands state filing fees?
Sounds
Well, we-
good.
Yes, we danced around the topic, but I will go and ask for money for that. And then what is something else? What else was it?
Anna's training.
Thank you. So I will go and I will find out what the procedure is for acquiring funds for that. But yes, let's go ahead and buy it.
So that's all I wanted to bring up with that.
Okay. All right. Michael, I saw a premature minutes display.
Did I jump the gun somehow?
Slightly. So let's go and let's finish the minutes discussion.
Yes. We were here correcting. This is the last thing we have here. Are we okay now with what we have here for this?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Whoops. Then here's the next batch of stuff. Say something when you're all done.
Something.
Okay. Anybody else?
Something.
Carol, Courtney?
I'm cool with
I'm
it.
good.
I will refrain from saying something.
Wow. You are a master of control.
In the moment.
Yeah, okay.
It looks good to me all the way to the bottom of the screen.
There's a typo in where it says under agent position update, the chair is working with David Williams to finalize an offer letter. And it looks like we didn't spell Anna's name right.
Thank you. Thank you. One more N, please. Thank you.
Michael, is there more? Do you need to keep scrolling or is
Yes,
that it?
I need to hear from you guys. Oh, I guess there's not much. I move that we accept the minutes as edited for October 14th.
Hey, just a quick thing, Michael, that under agents report, this item was not discussed. It's just a random statement in the middle, in between agents report and administrative approvals. We should probably just, yeah.
There is a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
And second.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor, Jean?
Aye.
Neil, I, Michael,
All right,
Carol,
Aye.
Courtney,
Aye.
Cindy?
Aye.
All right, the motion carries. We've got agents report. Do you want to do that now, Anna?
oh, you don't want to do this?
Do what?
Oh,
Oh, these are, sorry, I didn't know you had a second set of minutes.
he always has extra minutes.
Oh, yeah, I just make them up.
We got to keep up with our minutes. We don't want to get in trouble.
Okay, let's roll through it.
I was also present, but maybe, I guess I wasn't really, I was just pre-staff.
Yeah, we don't put guests anymore.
Michael, I have something for when you get down to it, Linden Lane.
I'm just waiting for a bunch of somethings.
Something.
I'm all set to move.
Oops, like I lost track
I
of where
would just
we
like
were.
to add, I would like to add under 5 Linden Lane, third line up from the bottom, maple tree. I'd like to add after maple tree, but before the period at the end of the sentence, because it shades the wetland behind.
And then later in the sentence, compromise instead of will comprise the system, the word there I think is compromise.
There you go.
Dan McIntyre stated the roots will compromise the system. Just in the rest of that line. Yep.
Yeah. Well, compromise. What? So what's the issue?
Put in OM right where your cursor is.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yep.
Seems though I'm like, well, I knew there was something wrong there, but
Yep, that's an easy one to
yeah.
skip.
I'm good.
Something.
Carol's
Sorry, I
control.
started that trend.
Yeah, I'm just proofing. No, you can scroll up. I'm looking at 55 Farm Road now.
I'm all set.
Yeah, I'm all set with the whole page.
Yep, I'm good with it.
I have a, under the following discussion items were not held. I thought we did discuss the warrant. I thought we discussed that the warrant included the job posting and WB Mason. So I thought we discussed the warrant, but maybe we didn't discuss it enough.
Well, either we did or we didn't. It's very simple.
I don't know. I have in my note. I don't know how I would otherwise know that it was a job posting in WB Mason if we didn't discuss it.
His office. What was the other expense?
Job posting.
Hmm.
You know where it says wetland markers down there, Michael, a few lines down? It looks like what comes after, you might put a line space before it and remove the line space after because it seems to be referring to what came next. Can you remove that line space? Yeah. Do you want to scroll up? Are other people ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
I move that we accept the minutes.
Hang on a minute, hang on a minute. You don't have in there between administrative approvals and the documents section, you need a motion was made and seconded to adjourn. Maybe you want to just pull that from another one so you don't have to type it all out.
Or just
Okay, I'll
put
do that.
adjourn and question mark in red.
What's that?
Just put adjourn and question mark in red and Elizabeth can fill it in.
Oops.
And you did a fish.
Okay, I move. We take the October 28 minutes as edited.
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, Jean,
Aye.
Neil, I, Michael,
Aye.
Carol,
Aye.
Courtney,
Aye.
Cindy,
Aye.
motion carries. All right, anything else anybody wants to spring on me? Do we have more minutes? No, that was the 28th. We're good. Do we have 11-4?
No.
Great.
No.
All right. Then agents report, Anna?
So if it's okay, I'll start with the site visit to Dopping Brook to look at the rail trail. That's not okay?
Yep.
So on November 10th, I went with a group of other people from the town, including Sean and Addie Mae, to the erosion place where there's erosion, which is that same, share my screen. It's this place where the rail trail, where the rail trail crosses Dopping Brook. I just want to point out that the flow direction is, you can see the flow arrow there, the flow of the stream. And so these were some photos from looking into Sherborn. When we got there, there's a pile of sediment accumulation that you can see from the stream. You can't really see it in the photo, but right above this box where it says sediment accumulation, where those leaves are, there is some of what has been eroded has just landed up in the stream. And then when we were there, the culvert was partially obstructed by a deteriorated straw wattle, which was actually moved by Addie Mae during the site visit. But even after the straw wattle was removed, the flow was still very slow, and which caused some people on the site visit to suggest that maybe there's a beaver dam. Oh, and Joyce was there. That there might be a beaver dam or some other obstruction just downstream that is, I'll skip to, no, I guess I don't have a picture. Let's see, looking, I thought I had, I don't, but the water's, oh, this is downstream. So you can see, I mean, it just looks like a pond. It's not moving. So that there might be something downstream out of sight of the trail that's not related to the erosion exactly, but something else going on there that we saw on the site visit. And then, so this is just another angle of it. You can see that it's eroded both the trail and the trail bed. That was the rail bed. And then finally, this is some erosion control that Sean put in on the 17th. So that is it for that site visit, unless there are questions about that.
Cindy, you've got your hand up.
I was just curious, so what is the idea, or what is the thought as to what's causing the erosion in the trail to erode like that? Does anyone have a sort of a theory?
Yes, it's part of the problem was that it was obstructed by the deteriorated straw wattle that was stuck through the culvert from one side to the other from some other rail trail project, not sure exactly. And it's so close to the Holliston line, as you can see on the map. So it's this, it was partially obstructing it. And then we had a very big storm in the last couple of weeks that it just overflowed and caused that. And I think it's probably a series of storms.
I did want to mention, because I've walked that, like, it's not that far from where I live. So my husband and I walked that about a month ago, and that part of the trail has been deteriorating for a while. But I know, Jean, do you remember when we happened to see you there? Was that the weekend of the same weekend?
Same weekend as what?
Was it the weekend of the, let's see, the 6th?
Yes.
I'm bringing it up just maybe at that point you knew about the violation. I guess you did, but my son, my son didn't know about it, but he stopped and looked, and he said afterwards that it was chocolate brown and it was very stagnant on the downstream.
Oh no, the when I ran into you there, that was before the chocolate milk. The water
Okay.
was clear, but I went to look at the crumbled rail trail because I'd heard about it from somebody.
I think that's been crumbled for a while. Well, I'll say that it's interesting you didn't see sedimentation, Mike, but because my son did say, oh, there's a whole bunch of like dirt in the water. So I don't know. That's interesting. Just thought I'd bring it up.
Yeah, well, obviously, portions of the rail trail itself ended up in the water, but that had happened prior to
Yeah.
when I ran into you there.
Oh, yeah. That's been there for a while.
Yeah.
Any other questions about that?
So what are the next steps on any of this? I mean, I guess, are we concerned about
There's going to be a notice of intent. Joyce is putting a notice of intent together for repairs, and that's all I know.
okay. And I guess whether there's any barriers downstream that are causing it backed up, that's just nature doing, I mean, unless there's some filling going in downstream versus, I don't know if it's worth a hike downstream of a finding that it's being blocked up.
Yeah, possibly.
Whether somebody is in a little of a bushwhacking mood. But maybe we should go see if there's really no flow there. But it's not necessarily that I have time for it. I see Elizabeth has her hand up.
We already received the notice of intent on Wednesday, so we have that. It's on the December 2nd meeting
Hmm.
Okay.
for the repair.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Anna, did you have other stuff in the agent's report you wanted to cover? You are muted.
You're muted.
Sorry. You're going to be so excited. We're going to talk about signs.
Oh, no.
So
No.
So was the sign from All Type that's only $5 a shot? Is that plastic or metal?
it's metal.
Oh, okay, it is metal. Okay, so it's really so much cheaper.
Yep.
But it's more expensive than I thought it would be. I'm surprised. So,
Mean at
What are we
$5, $5 a
sorry.
shot?
What are we talking about?
Neil, at the last meeting, based on Joyce's recommendation, we decided the commission, are going to purchase. We agreed on what it should look like and what the wording should be. We're going to purchase 100 or try to of the little plaques that we want people to put on the boundary markers. And when somebody is asked to put up boundary markers, we're going to provide them with the plaques, and they're going to give us back what we paid for them. So Anna did some research with 2 different graphics companies to find out how much 100 markers plaques would cost.
Okay.
And one was how many thousands of dollars?
Well, it was $10 each for one, and the other one is about $6, and it could be even less if we don't put the
Very surprised at the cost, but
with the VHB tape. If we just focus on the lower cost one, does that tape work on stone, or you still need, or whether that's
no,
whether we don't want to have the tape because we want people to just glue it?
That is the tape that was recommended by them for a concrete marker.
Really? Wow.
VHB tape,
As the adhesive. I can go into my email at some point, though not right now. He said something about it being extremely strong.
Okay. Do you have a sense of whether if it was only 50, what the price would be in terms of the unit cost? If we wanted to try it out without having to spend $600.
That is a good question. And I had asked him, and the only I don't know, and I can find out.
Okay. I
I'm
guess-
curious.
We
whether
had
they
said 100 at the last meeting, but do we want to look into 50?
I don't know. I can't tell whether it's less of a budget thing and we could see how it works out in case something goes wrong that we missed. Until we've proven it out, sometimes it's just to see how it really works.
I'm wondering if All Type Digital Graphics would send a sample of the VHB tape to see if it's actually as strong and, works with all kinds of surfaces.
Yeah, we can get,
Like
Right,
maybe
we're
they
not-
would be willing to send a little sample so that we could test it.
and also even if it doesn't work, we could still say to people they have to glue it, essentially, even with, no matter whether it has tape on it or not.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's part of if the price for 50 wasn't too bad, whether we just get that and we could test out a few. And plus,
I just want to say one quick thing. That sample that's on the screen right now, it says Conversation Commission rather than
Oh my gosh.
Conservation.
Oh, good catch.
well, plus we weren't going to have town of, we were just going to keep it. I would prefer that if Sherborn Conservation Commission could be on one line, then wetland protection area could be larger font. I kind of like the idea of, in terms of relative fonts, I kind of like the idea that the wetland protection area is similar in font to no disturbance, so that it's the more positive message. Like when you
So
go
you're
to
just
the
saying,
others.
Michael, that you want it to say Sherborn Conservation Commission.
Yeah, that's what, like on the others, when you look at the other markup of the other options that in the other photo that were sent to the other company.
Yep.
If you bring those up, the one on the right, I kind of like more because I somehow like the idea of wetland protection area having a larger prominence so that people have the more positive message. And
Yep.
then you have
Okay.
the no disturbance.
Mhm.
So I'm sort of wouldn't mind them being of similar font.
Okay, on the subject of font, wetland protection area, all caps, and this other stuff is in,
Upper and lower.
title. Well, right, so there are a couple of differences, actually. So this is the
Once
text
again,
that,
no, go on. Sorry.
no, this is conservation. Oh, well, so Michael, maybe you have an opinion about this, whether this should be capitalized. I looked it up and seems like it could be either or, capitalized or not in title case. And do people have an opinion about it being, all caps versus title? Do they like this general look, which is on both of them?
I think that I get what you're saying, Michael, but I actually think that having wetland protection area on one line is a little more readable, like you scan it right away. And when you break it up, it's a little harder to read. So I would probably vote for that. I like the one on the left that has the two lines and kind of, there's a lot of text there. So I think it's kind of nice to make it as clean looking as possible.
Yeah, I like the one on the left too, just visually, it's more appealing.
Do we
So
want?
I'm not sure that I like the capital no, I don't know.
Well, I think we should
Yeah.
change. that.
That's a bit much. I agree with you, Cindy.
Yeah, that was the thing I was gonna say. I agree. The lowercase o.
But are you in agreement that we're looking at the design of this signs.com, but we're actually talking about altering the design of the all type?
Yeah, right. We want to get this thing priced by the other people, right?
Okay.
I see what you mean about having it all on one line. And somehow whatever it is, I could go either way. I mean, I like the prominence of the positive message, but
Well, the one thing that I think is nicer about the one on the left is like the font size of what's in the middle is closer to wetland protection area, right? Like, I think that's the big difference that we're kind of intuitively picking up on, that
yeah.
it's not a much bigger font size.
Okay, so we're all somewhat happy with the one on the left with a lowercase o.
Yeah, I would lean towards that one.
And I guess I need to hear from somebody whether we want the capital T of this or not.
I
Capital
don't know,
what?
I would not.
T.
Yeah, I would not.
Oh,
If you're
Did you
gonna,
see the one
if
in
you're
the
gonna
last
do
picture?
initial caps, well, okay, in the headline, if you're gonna do initial caps in every word, then you should do it in every word except a short word like or. Are you saying just the initial caps in the no, and then
Just the
everything?
T.
the T in this is
No,
different, right?
that's not grammatically.
Yeah, it should be capitalized like that
Yeah.
one, you know. Even though the one, as you said, right.
It should be or it shouldn't be.
I think it should be, Anna. That's, I mean, isn't that like this
Well,
is
the
kind
rule
of treating
was
it
if
almost
it's
like a
a-
headline?
It's
Yeah.
it's accepted both ways.
Oh, I see. I kind of personally, I do a fair amount of writing, and I kind of feel like unless it's a really short word like or and, I generally feel like keep the initial caps if you're doing it already. You know what I mean?
Do we want to consider not having all those capital letters and just
I mean,
have,
that's the other possibility.
is just have a capital N? And that's the only capital letter.
Yeah.
So words like this, from, the, and, all lowercase, and when you're capitalizing in like a title, which is what this is being done as, just
They're lowercase or lowercase, you said?
lowercase.
I
Or
don't-
and
Are you looking that up right now, though?
a little bit, yeah.
Because that's
A
not,
little bit.
I mean, I started my career as a copy editor, so that was a long time ago, but that was not the rule I knew. Maybe it's changed.
Okay. Either way,
Well,
I think to be honest with you, it's 9:45. I was hoping this meeting would end early. I'd like
Yeah.
us to abbreviate what's left of this conversation and make a decision. Let's keep it capitalized.
Oh, okay, so we're not going to shift to all lowercase except for the end.
I just quickly looked it up. In the AP style book, all words with 3 letters or fewer are lowercase in a title. 3 letters or fewer.
Okay.
So
Excellent.
we're going to go with the one that was on the left, but we're going to have a lower o, a lowercase o, and a capital T for this.
You got it.
I will look into 50.
Mhm.
Okay.
And we can all make a decision offline about it.
Sounds good. All right,
A-
Anna, what else do you have in your agency
Administrative
report?
approvals.
Oh, wonderful.
36 Ash Lane, a well installation. It's out of jurisdiction. 11 Goulding Street East is for a deck installation is in jurisdiction, and so will need to be done as a different kind of application. And 47 Orchard Road is soil testing. The soil, excuse me, we're going to amend the soil testing AA to include installation, because the soil pits were where the septic installation is going to be, and just going to go with that. That is all I have.
All right. Is that it? Is that it? We're all
That's it.
done? All right, I move we adjourn.
Second,
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, Jean,
aye.
Neil, aye, Michael,
Aye.
Carol,
Aye.
Courtney,
I
Cindy?
Aye.
Well, the motion carries. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Anna. Nice first full meeting,
Well
at least
done,
my
Anna.
experience. Yeah,
Yeah,
well done.
thank
Good
you.
job.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
Have a good Thanksgiving.
Yeah, happy
Yep.
Thanksgiving, everybody.
Mhm.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving.